Did you say Texas is not part of the South?
Texas is not part of the South.
I'm keeping this in, and if people drag you, I am not responsible.
Texas. It's not the South.
Welcome to Makeup Mystery. My name is Nicole, and I'm here with my friend Rachel.
Hi.
Today we are going to be covering Texas history, and I'm really excited because that is not at all what she signed up for. But we're going to do it anyway, and it's going to be a blast. What do you know about Texas history?
I'm from Tennessee, so I know that we sent a lot of people to help Texas fight the Revolutionary War.
That is why Tennessee is called the volunteer state. Fun fact, you're already learning. You just clicked and you're already learning. Look at you go. Let me explain to you how this is going to work. I'm going to do Rachel's makeup, and while I'm doing her makeup, I'm going to tell her the story of the Texas Revolution. I'm going to ask her a couple questions while I'm doing her makeup, and if she gets them right, we'll use the high-end, very recognizable brands to complete whatever look I feel like completing today. And if she gets the questions wrong, well, we're going to be using brands that are a little less recognizable. Brands from the Dollar General, from the Dollar Tree, maybe even Claire's. So we're going to work as a team. Rachel's hopefully going to get these questions right, and we're going to get a great look regardless. All right, yes ma'am. We are going to start our story in 1821 with Mexico getting its independence from Spain. So Mexico opted for a federalist government, meaning that they wanted their states, their regions, whatever, to have as much autonomy as possible. So it wasn't as connected in a centralized government. So with Mexico getting its independence, they had this one pesky region called Texas. Texas was in the area that we know now as Texas, but it belonged to Mexico at the time, and it was really underpopulated, and Mexico wanted to find a way to get more money, resources, and a higher population out of Texas. So they decided to start this settlement program to try to encourage Americans to settle in Texas. So in order for Americans to settle in the Texas region, they had to agree to 3 terms set forth by the Mexican government. A, they had to promise to live in Texas for at least 10 years. B, they had to pledge their loyalty to the Mexican government. And C, they had to convert to Catholicism because it's Mexico. It's Mexico, and that's what you do. So all the settlers promised this, but the settlers that were moving there from America were all like white Protestant men. So it was really interesting that they were like, yeah, we don't care. We just want land and we'll just settle to these terms. It is what it is. The next person I'm going to introduce you to is Stephen Austin. Stephen Austin was a very interesting individual. Ooh, look at her. She fun, she cute. So Austin agreed to all the terms in order to move to Texas, and the Mexican government was like, bet, here's a shit ton of land. Like, they gave him more land than like this man really knew what to do with, but that's okay. He brought a lot of American settlers to Texas region. So like, shout out to Austin for really helping the Mexican settlement program. And then I'm also going to introduce you to a guy named William Travis, Big Daddy Willie. So William Barrett Travis, he was from South Carolina. He bought land from Austin. He also brought additional settlers from America to Texas. And he he started a militia in Texas, like almost immediately, to fight the Mexican government. So Austin, he wanted to be a peacemaker. He was like, hey, Mexico was nice in letting us settle here. They gave us a bunch of land. Like, we're going to agree to their rules. We're going to do what Mexico asked us to do. And William Barrett Travis was immediately like, he like arrived in Texas and was immediately like, no, we're stirring shit up. We're doing it. He's like, we are getting our independence and we're doing our own thing. Here's a militia. And Austin was like, Jesus, dude, relax, man. That's not the idea, but here we are. When Travis arrived to the Texas region, he immediately started this militia, and the militia was built in case they had to defend themselves in something that might be known, I don't know, later as the Alamo. Stay tuned. That's foreshadowing. There's one more person I have to introduce you to until we get deep inside. Deep in the heart of Texas. The last person I have to introduce you to is Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. I don't know how to describe him besides having like big dick energy. I'll say it. He started as the president of Mexico, but he quickly became the dictator, which isn't great, but here we are. He originally sent troops into the Texas area to try to suppress any rebellions, try to like suppress the militia that Travis was starting. But they quickly were defeated at like multiple times, just like small little battles or skirmishes or whatever. And they ran back to Mexico. Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna said, bet, I'm taking my own army down there. And while leading the country of Mexico, immediately after getting their independence from Spain, he went into the Texas territory to lead an army himself to fight all the Texans who were trying to rebel. It's not great. It's not great. It's bad, but like it's big dick energy. You have to admit it. You have... There was one standoff that really was above all the other ones and kind of kicked everything off for everyone. And that standoff is now known as the Alamo. So here we arrive at our first question. This question will determine whether or not we use the Morphe 35S palette in addition to the Morphe 9V palette, or if we use the LA Colors Berry Kiss palette from Dollar General, or the LA Colors palette from the Dollar Tree. So no pressure, but please get this right. All right?
I'll try my best.
All right. So what was the Alamo? A heavily armored army base. B, a small town. Or C, an abandoned Catholic mission.
I'm gonna go with C.
Thank goodness. C is the correct answer, and therefore we will be using these two Morphe palettes, and I'm so excited because they have the prettiest colors in them. All right, so let us move on. So despite what a lot of people think, the Alamo was actually an abandoned Catholic mission. It wasn't a fortified base. It wasn't like a small town. It really was not prepared for any sort of battle, military, anything to happen. There were about 153 men defending the Alamo, trying to keep it safe. A lot of these men were volunteers from other parts of the South, including Tennessee.
Woo!
Hashtag volunteer state. Gotta represent, what can I say? On February 23rd, 1836, Santa Anna arrived at the Alamo and began a siege. So for those of you who do not know, a siege is a military tactic in which you surround a city, a base, in this case, the Alamo, and you try to cut off the people inside from resources that they need. So that can include food, that can include ammo, that can include a whole bunch of things. In this case, Santa Anna was just trying to basically starve out the people inside the Alamo until they gave up. The siege went on from February 23rd until March 6th, and March 6th is when shit hit the fan, baby. We're going for it, all right? March 6th, in the wee hours of the morning, around 5 a.m., some people estimate about 2,000 to 6,000 Mexican soldiers descended upon the Alamo. I know that's a very massive range. Try to research things like this, sometimes you don't get the answers you want. Some people were saying, hey, it was like 6,000 people descending on. Some people said it was 2,000. Some people said 4,000. So I just threw that range there. If you want, I include the research that I use down below so you can check it out and take a look for yourself. Try to make an assessment. The Mexican army killed every single Texan and American that was at the Alamo. Travis died, and Santa Anna ordered for their bodies to be burned so they can be made into an example. So here we arrive at our second question, and I'm a little bit nervous, not gonna lie. This question will determine whether or not I could continue the video as usual, nothing changes, or if I can only use 2 brushes for the rest of the video and try to accomplish this look. Hopefully Rachel gets this right. Your question, Rachel. Who was another notable person who died at the Alamo? I'm gonna give you a hint because I'm generous like that. Mm-hmm. He was from Tennessee, and he has a bust on the 2nd floor of the Tennessee State Capitol.
Is it Sam Houston? Is it my boy Davy Crockett?
It's your boy Davy Crockett. It is what it is. It is what it is. It's all right. I think we'll be able to do this. But I'm glad you mentioned our boy Sam Houston, because guess what? He's coming up next. All right, so we are here to talk about our boy, Sam Houston.
My boy, Sam Houston.
I didn't know we were claiming, but...
Where is he from, Sydney?
I'm gonna get it. Sam Houston was born on March 2nd, 1793 in Virginia. By the way, that makes him a Pisces. A Spices. He was born in Virginia, but his family moved to a small town in Tennessee that is named...
Maryville!
Fun fact, Maryville is Rachel's hometown, which is how we landed on this topic. We thought we were doing Sam Houston, but
we're not.
We're not. But at 19, he enlisted in the Army and he served in the War of 1812. Here is where Sam Houston got a lot of his notoriety. He did really well in this war and he was starting a very promising career. He goes through the ranks quickly and he impresses higher ranking officials. And eventually, after the war, went on to serve as an ambassador between the U.S. government and the Cherokee Nation. He did a lot of good things, and he tried to help Native Americans as much as he could, but he also helped in Jackson's plan for Native American removal and the Trail of Tears, so, like, not a great guy. Sam Houston eventually got involved in politics, and he became the 6th governor of Tennessee, which is really interesting. He eventually got barred from politics when he tried to cane another congressman on the floor. Like, while things were happening, he just got, like, really mad at this guy and tried to cane him. So, like, that's a very easy way to get barred from politics. After that happened, Sam Houston said, fuck it, let's move to Texas, man. So he moves to Texas, and he has a pretty sizable plot of land. He's doing a lot of things there. And he eventually starts involving himself both the military and politics within Texas. So at the time of the Alamo, Houston was the commander-in-chief of the Texas Army. So he was a big deal by the time that Alamo was coming about. After the Alamo, everyone kind of wanted to blame Houston for what happened because 153 men died. And it was a really big failure on the Texan Army part. And Houston looked really bad afterwards. So they were calling for him to, like, either retaliate or show some force or something. And they started to think that he looked weak. But Houston decided instead to wait for the perfect opportunity to strike back instead of retaliating immediately. Houston actually started moving a little bit more towards East Texas, and away from where Santa Ana was and where the Alamo was. And again, people thought this was weak. They criticized him for it, but this turned out to be a really good strategy in the end. Santa Ana started chasing down Sam Houston, and as he was chasing him down, he was getting further and further away from his reserves, from his reinforcements, and from the people that will help him win this war. Santa Ana tried to chase Houston down, but in doing so, he got further and further away from Mexico and from his supplies and reinforcements. He eventually had to split up his troops, which ended up being a really, really bad idea for Santa Ana in the end. And here we arrive at the Battle of San Jacinto. I just want to say, I've seen multiple ways to pronounce it. Some people say you pronounce the J, some people say it's Jacinto. I'm rolling with Jacinto for this. If this is wrong, you can drag me in the comments. I don't care. Houston had about 783 men, and Santa Ana had like a bunch more, but they were split up, they were tired.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why was the Alamo even like, why were people at the Alamo to begin with? Do you know?
Because if it was a place that Santa Ana got, it was a place that like would have been good for him to supply and build into a base to make it easier for him to penetrate further into Texas. So even though it wasn't like that big of a deal and it was just a small mission or whatever, it was a good stopping point for Santa Ana, and they knew that. So their goal was to try to stop him from moving further if they could. But there's the Battle of Gilead, which is another spot that Santa Ana was trying to get to. It wasn't nearly as fortified. It happened after the Alamo, and Texas troops tried to stop him there too, and he also killed everyone there too. So when people say remember the Alamo, and they also usually say remember Gilead, but then people haven't, so they don't remember.
Remember Gilead.
No! Actually, no! It would have been a good spot for Santa Ana if he got to it. It would not have necessarily slowed him down, but like it was something for the Texans to do. Houston had about 783 men, while Santa Ana had about 1,300 men. So obviously Houston was outnumbered, but Houston had a better strategy. So that turned out to be the better plan anyway. Houston's army burned the only bridge that would have allowed Santa Anna to return to his reinforcements or to retreat. So he essentially just trapped Santa Anna. After he trapped Santa Anna's troops, and Santa Anna realized he had nowhere to go, no reinforcements, and there was no real way of winning this battle, he then came to Sam Houston and officially surrendered with a treaty that gave Texas its independence from Mexico. And here we come to our final question. This question will determine if Rachel today will wear some beautiful lashes that I love for this look, or if we use Rachel's mascara, which is a combination of a mascara I bought her with a wand from her old mascara. I just here's the ASMR if you're wondering. Chunky. So the question that will determine whether or not Rachel will be wearing lashes or her mascara monstrosity is, what was the name of the treaty that gave Texas its independence from Mexico? A, the Treaty of San Jacinto, B, the Treaty of Valesco, or C, the Treaty of Gonzales?
Well, I think the Treaty of San Jacinto is too obvious. So I'm gonna go with C.
The correct answer is the Treaty of Valesco. Rachel, I'm gonna let you show me how this works. The Treaty of Valesco is what gave Texas its independence. Some years later, Texas then joins the United States right before the Civil War. And that's a video for a whole nother time. That is coming, I do promise. That is the story of Texas Revolution and Texas history. I'm very proud of Rachel. I'm happy that we at least got to use the Morphe palettes today. And I think we came up with a really good look together. I'm really excited about this look. I like the pop of blue. I think it does wonders for your eyes. I'm very much here for it. If you like history and you like makeup and you like this monstrosity that we created here today, please like and subscribe and follow for more content. Thanks for stopping by, y'all. And remember, don't make up your history.